Hi, we're here at UNC Kenan-Flagler with Chris Lindland, founder and CEO of Betabrand. Chris, would you mind introducing yourself and talking a little bit about Betabrand?
My name is Chris Lindland. I'm the founder and CEO of Betabrand. It's an online clothing company. We put out a brand new product every day. And you ask, how do we do that? Well, what we do is we ask designers from all over the world to submit concepts to our website. And a concept can be a sketch, it can be a prototype, and you can find thousands of ideas on our site. And the trick is, we ask consumers to say, well, what do you want? And what they do is they vote for them, and the most popularly voted for concepts, we then turn into products that you can buy and wear.
As a serial entrepreneur, when do you feel like you caught the entrepreneurial bug? And to whom or what do you attribute your entrepreneurial spirit?
I don't know if it's a sense of ego or practice, but I remember being a kid and the relationship that I built up with a lot of friends was sort of just coming up with ideas, creating short videos, movies, and stuff like that. And I got a lot of cycles in believing that I was the one who was supposed to put on the cool party. I was the one who could write the funny article or something like that. And what that added up to is this sort of reliance that you invent the things that you're interested in. And I think that that's a big part I find with the entrepreneurial story is that if you get cycles, like I think people who are musicians end up doing it because they've got to write songs and get up on stage. And you have this sense that your life will be dictated by your own ideas. And I think that that ends up being part of it.
I'm sure being back on UNC's campus brings back lots of fond memories. What do you know now that you really wish you would have known when you were a student here?
Wow, I think what's been amazing to see is that in 20 years, the programs here have become so much better. And it's not to say that they weren't good at the time. I think the world changed so that things like being an entrepreneur are actually baked into the program here at this point. You've got things like the Innovation Lab and courses and accelerators and all kinds of things you can do. And so what's interesting for me to say, what would I look back and change? It's probably the questions that you can ask adults who've actually done things. Back then, I think it was probably more upon the student to find those things. And I think the university does a great job now of presenting those opportunities to people. But you'll be amazed by what people who are older than you might know. And figuring out how to talk to them about it is a really important thing.
How do you feel like your Kenan-Flagler Business School degree has impacted your success as an entrepreneur?
Well, one of the things that's funny is that, believe it or not, so if you're an undergrad here and you're taking all these courses and they just sort of seem to be parts of an adult life that you either do or do not want to experience, the truth is you can't avoid them as an adult. So the things in, human resources and organizational psychology and accounting and finance and law all come back to you when you're doing anything in the business world, and particularly when you're an entrepreneur, because you ultimately have to deal with all of those things. So, what's fun for me is to think there were classes that I paid less attention to that you then think back and go, oh wow, could have stood to pay more attention in that class. And the good thing is that the education here allows you sort of the keys to get back into that learning. So I found that all the things that you see in class, you end up seeing again as an adult. And it benefits you to essentially find a way to be interested in everything.
Let's talk a little bit about leadership. As CEO, what do you feel are the most important leadership traits that you look for in your leadership team?
Best leader is honestly someone where you think that they're coming to your business as an important stepping stone in their own career, which is to say, the best person is someone that you hope is working somewhere else in a few more years, because what they want to do is demonstrate doggedly that they're worthy of that next stage too. And so you're really looking with people that have confidence in their own ideas, and enthusiasm for their own ideas, and the ability to bring those things to life. So I love when people come and work for me that are really committed to the work that they do, not just for the job you have right now, but the future self that they envision themselves to be.
What do you consider to be your personal leadership style?
I love to lead by example where possible, which is cool because it helps support your claim at leadership, right? There's a lot of creative people who come and work at Betabrand, and I really make it an important thing for me to be participant in that. Like, there's a lot of Chris ideas that make their way to the website and become promotions, and I have a great rate of success at those things. And it's important because you need to demonstrate to creative people that you also have chops too. And that's something that, on the one hand, you have to give the creative people room to demonstrate what they can do. But I find that you also have to show them that you're good too.
What do you love most about being an entrepreneur?
The thing that I've come to understand over time, and you learn it a lot by talking to people who aren't, I guess, entrepreneurs or really running their own businesses or concepts, is that you really do have this opportunity to have an idea, and that idea may come over a cup of coffee, may happen to you in a shower, just something that you think is interesting. And then there's an obligation for you to go do it. And when you're really fortunate, you get to have this history of ideas that you've had, without a doubt, that you've invested your own care and effort into and now exist. And that's the thing that's so cool about it. And some take a long time, some are shorter. But what I've done for the most part is try to set up a business where it's possible for me to have an idea that I really like, that I can witness come to life in a short amount of time.
What are some of the most difficult aspects of being an entrepreneur?
The early part of any venture is tough because progress is very slow. And you see that with a lot of entrepreneurs who want to get started in something, and you've got so much energy and you're so excited to get it going, but then you end up having to wait to get some permit for a week, or you wait a long time to hear back from someone. And it feels like a lot of the process is this painful waiting for something to happen. And so I think that that's a tough part. That's when you feel that there's something very different than what you're doing between someone who has a job somewhere. And that's the point where you envy the person who has the job somewhere, because stuff is happening at a faster rate there. So what's tough about being an entrepreneur is earning your way to the rate of occurrences that happen in any business week, because you have a lot of them at any given job, and it takes you a while to build that as an entrepreneur.
The process of raising capital is often a very long and arduous road. What are some key pieces of advice that you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to raise capital, whether from VCs or alternate sources of funding?
The best bit of advice I'll always give is become an expert at saying, "That's a great question, I'll get back to you on it tomorrow." It really is important, because I think a lot of times people go in to pitch to raise money. You're always going to hear a question that you're not prepared for. So you can either artfully dodge it to move on to something else, or you can get back to those people. And I think that eliminates a lot of the anxiety that you may have in a meeting that you're not prepared, is to be so prepared at telling people you'll get back to them that helps. So that's one bit of advice. The other one is to just really understand, by talking to as many other people as possible who've done the same thing, about the process of raising money. Because you learn a lot from those people about what the process is like. And you learn more about valuation. You learn about what to ask, how to ask for it, etc. And then you learn about all the different ways to finance yourself, because there really are a lot of ways to do it, and it very much helps. So getting to know other entrepreneurs is enormously helpful there, because that's a way to really learn from them.
In 2015, you were recognized by Adweek as a top 100 creative. How do you inspire creativity and creative thinking in you as well as your leadership team?
I think it's the push every day to work to come up with ideas that you actually feel are original. And so for us, it's the way we present clothing to people, often on a daily basis, and trying to figure out what's the story behind a product that would make a person go, "Oh, okay, I can imagine myself experience the same thing." And that's really hard work, because I have this sort of model that I've created when I talk to the creative people of the business. There's something called craftsmanship. And craftsmanship is when you're just really good at photography, or really good at Photoshop, or really good at design. And that means you're going to create something that looks great. Now that's a step, and that's cool. There's creativity above it, And what that is saying, okay, I can express this in a creative manner, i.e. the photograph will be at a cool angle and it'll make the article of clothing look beautiful, or there'll just be an interestingness to the way it's presented. And connection is the real thing. Connection lies above them, which means you have creatively found a way to actually make a connection with a person. And then obviously, in our case, clicks are the final thing, which they've actually clicked it and consumed it. But that process really takes a lot of work. And a lot of people who are very talented often don't put as much work in the connection part of it. So I feel like that's a big part about creativity.
How do you see the retail landscape transforming over the next 5 to 10 years, and how will that impact Betabrand's strategy?
Well, I would say without a doubt, the majority of clothing consumed will be done online. There's no doubt in my mind that that's happening, and it's trending very quickly toward that. So then the question is, how do people then relate to clothing or consumer products in general? So if you assume that we're all buying everything online, is the work going into trying to make that experience so much more interesting, so much more fun, so much more personal? Our business is designed to collect as many photos as possible. There's no other website that has as many clothing photos as we do. And our goal is to increase that by 10x, so that if you're looking at something, we hope the models look like you. And if it's another person who's looking at things, we hope it looks like her. And it's not hard to do when you have volumes of thousands of photos of people wearing a product. So I would sort of say the personalization stuff is going to be unbelievable 5 to 10 years from now.
What is something that you're very proud of instituting at Betabrand?
So one thing I want to talk about actually has nothing to do with clothing and has everything to do with the relationship between the employees and the company that they work at. And I observed this when I was drinking with some employees, and they told me, and these were some people in their 30s that they had never left the country before. And it surprised me because they were like really sophisticated, hip people. And I was like, I wonder why that is. And it turned out that one of the women spends most of her paycheck taking care of her mom at home. And I was like, wait a second, we spend so much money here. If we just funneled those payments through a mileage card, we'd be able to amass miles more than anyone on earth. And so what we did is we actually redirected all of our spending through mileage cards so that we amass cuckoo amounts of miles and then send employees on trips, real short 4 to 5 day trips to other countries just to expose themselves to the world. Well, think about that. It costs us nothing to do that because it's just us taking advantage of the fact that mileage programs exist. And what has been really proud for me is that we've sent something like 35 people outside the country. Everyone who works at the business who's been there for a few years, who had previously never left the country has. And it's been these really eye-opening experiences for them. But what's better is it becomes this enormously great thing for everyone who gets to watch it happen. Because these people are Instagramming the whole time they're out there. So you're not just going to work one day, you're going to work one day to watch a person see Tokyo for the first time. I've never been to Tokyo, so I'm jealous of the kids that are doing this thing. So that's been something that matters that we've done. And it was us really thinking like growth hackers, where we said, it's not just an opportunity for us to do it. We did something that actually helps everybody, and it's a nice story.
What are some of your favorite Betabrand product innovations that you've produced at the company since you started it?
Sure. Products that I'm really proud of are the kind of products that change people's lives in some small way. So dress pant yoga pants is something that women always say, it was something I didn't think I could get away with in the workplace, and it's my secret. And when you have a connection like that with a person, then you're actually creating something that's just not a pair of pants. For some, it's this personal sense of rebellion or independence, and that's cool. So again, you have to work hard to recognize sometimes you're just selling trousers to people. But if it's trousers that elevate a person's sense of self, it's actually great. One of my favorite products of all time, it's one of our oldest, is disco pants and disco hoodies. A friend of mine who had started the precursor of Betabrand with me, he found this fabric, we found it in a fabric store, and it's basically fabric that makes you look and behave like a disco ball. You scatter light around when you're wearing it. And it's hilarious. Like you walk into a room and the light's hitting you correctly, you're literally casting light around you. Well, what's been fun about this is that it became hugely popular with people who go to Burning Man. And we became famous for making this stuff at Burning Man. I'd never even been to it before, but I knew that there were hundreds and hundreds of people who wore this stuff when they went there. So it became this sort of party attire. But here's what's cool. People started traveling with it. And we started getting photos from all over the world of people wearing this funky clothing where they went. But when they went there, everyone would be like, who are you and what is that you're wearing? So they became part of the environment in a way that was really fun for them. And there are people who insist on only traveling with that on now because they become this sort of like gleaming diplomat of the United States. And it's a really fun thing. So that's a product that always is rewarding because we get pictures every day where we're like, there's someone scuba diving it, there's someone skydiving it, there's someone, you know, in Africa on a safari with it. It's really fun.
Thanks so much, Chris, for visiting us here at UNC Kenan-Flagler.